we're going to be going through the secret to teaching lessons ELLs actually love, which I know the title's a little silly. There's obviously not one secret. There's lots of ways that we can make our lessons much more engaging, much more effective, and create experiences for our students that they do enjoy. It doesn't have to be a drag. And the nice thing about having lessons that students actually love is that we get more out of those lessons. Our students perform better when they're enjoying what they're doing, when they're engaged with what they're doing. If you're dragging them along and you're really pulling teeth to get them to do anything, the amount of learning that's happening, it really goes down drastically. So the more that we can make those lessons engaging and interesting for our students, the more that they're going to make progress with us. So it's really super important that we do this. And I've got some great tips I hope that you'll find helpful today as we go through. Our plan for today is we're going to walk through a little bit some of the challenges that we face, and we're going to talk about handing over responsibility. So as teachers, the more time we spend up front sort of lecturing, the more quickly we often lose our students unless we're particularly funny. But even most teachers who are funny and utilize that in the classroom a lot aren't funny all the time. They still have to get stuff done. And the more that we can hand over responsibility to our students during class means that more of the time is spent with them practicing the content that they need to learn. We're going to go through some a step-by-step walkthrough of a structure for your classes that you can use. And we're going to have some activity ideas that we're going to go through and some examples. And I've got some gifts for you at the end, so stick around and I will share those with you. And of course, we'll have some question and answer time for those of you who can stick around for that. But I would totally understand if not everybody's able to do that. So Lynn from Eastern Canada, welcome, Lynn, and high school students in Mexico. We will get into some of that stuff later. First, some of you know me. I maybe have come to another webinar of mine. Others may not. My background is maybe a little bit different than some. I lived in Taiwan for 18 years. My wife and I ran a school there, working with English learners. And during that time, we developed an entire curriculum, a library of resources that we created in collaboration with other teachers and students over a period of around 15 years. And it's still ongoing. The school itself, we ran for about 12, but the ongoing curriculum development has been continuing, even though we don't do the school any longer. We now live in Florida. And I have dealt with all of the same challenges you have. I've worn a lot of hats. I've been at the admin side. I've been on the teacher side. I've been teacher trainer. I've had others, watching, observing my classes. I've been there. I know that it is difficult at times. You also have a lot of responsibilities to do at your school, and you want to make the most of your lessons. And there are a variety of challenges that you face while trying to do that. And hopefully the tips and things that we go through today you might find helpful for meeting some of these challenges you have, like the content being just really, really hard and inaccessible for your students. I'm guessing all of us, from what I can tell, all of us are teaching in native English countries where students are coming from other countries and they are having to integrate into a native English speaking environment. And so we're required oftentimes by law to make sure that they are actually using grade level content in the classroom. And that is really, really hard, especially if you get newcomers who have zero English. And all of a sudden they're expected to be learning science and math and all of these other subjects in English. You'll very likely have multiple grade and proficiency levels in the same class. This is one of the most common issues that teachers bring up with me, that they have a variety of abilities in the same classroom and they're trying to meet those different needs. When we get to a little bit later here, we'll talk about how we can manage some of that in the classes that we teach. And then finally, if your ELLs are bored, they don't participate, then that can be an enormous challenge for you. You want to get some engagement out of it. You want to make the lessons fun. You don't want to stand up in front of the class and teach and they're, falling asleep and, giving you nothing. your energy levels as a teacher are going to be drained much more quickly if you're bringing all the energy. So even for those of us who are outgoing and energetic, which, you know, I don't tend to be. I tend to be more introverted, and I don't, you know, go into the. I can have a lot of energy in the classroom, but it drains me quickly. And my guess is that would be the same for most of you as well. If you're bringing all the energy, it's exhausting. If you have to do that all day, you know, you're going to be done by the end of the day, and you're going to burn yourself out, especially if you've got a lot of other responsibilities as a teacher. So what can we do? Well, first of all, why does it matter? We only have so much time, and we only have so much energy. Most of our students are also only going to get good at what they actually practice. So if I'm up front and I'm bringing the energy and I'm go, 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 but they're not actually practicing anything, they're not going to make the kind of improvements that they need. So we really need to move the responsibility from me as a teacher over to our students to get them really managing what they're working on, making decisions about what they're working on, getting them to use, you know, you're leveraging the energy of your students instead of your own to make the class go smoothly. And then you can kind of step back and be a coach and work with different groups and individuals as needed. That all makes a huge difference. So how do we do this? How do we hand over responsibility to our students? Because I've seen it done poorly and I've seen it done really well. There are times, you know, we talk about, you know, making student-centered classes and they kind of hand it over. You got all these groups of students and they're all sitting around and 95% of them are wasting time. They're not doing anything at all. And then the teacher gets frustrated and yells at them and they, you know, you guys aren't really working hard, you're not taking this seriously. And then they take it back. They take that responsibility back from their students and say, you guys don't deserve this. You can't do it. You're not doing a good enough job. I'm obviously going to have to direct this group in order to make sure that we get what needs to get done. So how do we do this? The model that I recommend, and we kind of have a version of this that I'll talk about in a second, but the one that maybe you have heard of or that there is, you know, research done on out there is called the Gradual Release of Responsibility model. And it's got basically 3 steps. And our model is similar to this, although it's, you know, it's a little bit different. So this model says we are going to say, I do as a teacher, I'm going to do something to model it for the class. And then we do it. So we do it kind of as a class, as a whole group, and then you do it. So then I turn it over to the students and they are going to complete tasks on their own. So I do, we do, you do. And so you're slowly sort of taking the responsibility at first, but then you're moving it over to the students as the class, as the lesson progresses. So that's kind of the basic model that we will be kind of basing everything off today. Now, the kid-inspired model is just a little bit different than that. Before I move on, just for those of you, if you have a question, I'm trying to keep a little bit of an eye on the chat. If you have a question and you want to stop me, please do. I get going and I, you know, sometimes I think I have communicated something clearly and maybe I haven't. So stop me if I have not said something clearly enough, or if you have a question. I don't mind at all. I actually prefer things to be a little bit more informal. So in the past, I did webinars where people could just talk. And some ways I think it's nice when that's possible, but I know it can also make people a little uncomfortable being on camera. You've got other things going on. So we've decided to go this way, but please stop me if you have a question. So the kid-inspired model is similar. We go from a class. I would recommend we start as a class together. So going through lesson challenges together as a whole group. We're getting the whole class involved with learning something that they need to learn for the class, whether it's vocabulary, whether it's a concept, whether it's a science concept that we need to learn, whether it's some sort of a grammar principle, whether it's literary objective, whatever it is that we're kind of doing, we need to model that first so that our students have a good idea of what they are going to be needing to do when we start handing that responsibility off to them. So we're going to set up the class somehow. And we want to do that together as a whole class. And we'll talk a little bit more about guidelines in a minute. But at this point, we really want to avoid individual students participating. We want to use the whole group. So if I'm explaining a grammar concept, I would have the whole class say it back to me. Or I would have everyone in the class turn to the person next to you and tell them what I just said. And then I'm going to go around and listen to them. We're going to, at this point, avoid saying, okay, who can tell me where is the noun in this sentence? And you have everybody, a handful of your stronger students raise their hands, and you have one student answer. That isn't really leveraging your time very well. We don't want to spend too much time at this point in the class. Your strong students, the reason they raise their hands is because they already know it, so they didn't need the practice. Your weaker students aren't going to learn it just because a strong student answered in the class for everybody to hear. Being present in the classroom does not equal learning. So we want to make sure that at this point in the class, we just are getting everybody involved across the board. So, turn and talk, those are going to be much better activities at this stage. We'll talk a bit more about some other activities in a minute. And then after that whole group time, we're going to turn it into small group time. And small group time is going to be groups of 2 to 3 students. The idea behind 2 to 3 students is that every student in each group is going to be required to participate a lot more if there are only 2 to 3 students in that group. If you have large groups of 5, 6, 10 students, and especially if there are some buddies in there, it's very easy for that group to get off topic. It's very easy for that group to become kind of cliquish. You've got some students talking to each other. You've got a lot of students sitting there not participating. And so at this small group time, we want them to practice whatever it is that goal is for the day. And we'll talk about goals here in a second. Whatever it is we're working on for that day, we want them to practice it in a small group of 2 to 3, and every single student is participating in that small group, actually practicing for achieving that goal. And then finally, we're going to move to individuals. At the individual point of the class, you're going to have students practicing however they want. So individual doesn't necessarily mean I have to practice by myself. Individuals can mean they are practicing in small groups. Individually, doesn't matter, but they're practicing for the goal of achieving some sort of a task that I have assigned for them. And then they're going to go try to achieve that goal. They're going to go try to pass that challenge. And they're going to, when they do that, they're going to show competency in whatever goal or target that we're aiming for that day. So that's kind of the basic model. And we're going to go through this in a little bit more detail. Just kind of wanted to give a big picture of it first. Before I get into that big picture, this does work. And I thought I moved this up to this point because I thought it might be helpful for you to see kind of what benefits there are to using this model for our lessons. One of the big ones is that it leverages students' energy and not yours as the teacher. So when I am setting up the class and then turning responsibility over to the students in small groups and then individuals, they're the ones who are taking their own energy and moving the class along. And I can stand back and observe and see where I need to go plug in to make sure that everybody's staying on track, everybody's working towards those goals and then achieving those goals. Students learn more in less time because all of the students in the class are actually participating and practicing for very specific goals that you've set up for them. And then, I mentioned in the title of this webinar that the secret to teaching lessons that ELLs actually love. So creating lessons that students love doesn't mean just we play a lot of games and we have a lot of laughs. That doesn't necessarily mean they learned anything. And students can get tired of that actually quite quickly. Students really do enjoy lessons where they get some autonomy. They're able to make some choices and decide how they're going to work towards a goal. They enjoy and love classes where they have some choice, some independence. Yes, of course, some games. Giving them the option of playing games with their friends creates a lot of enjoyment in the classroom. And I've got some great game activity ideas for you in a minute that will fit into this very well, this model very well, that students are actually practicing content that they need to learn. They're not just goofing off and spending a bunch of time playing a game that isn't actually contributing to them achieving the goals for the class. Small groups, they love hanging out with their friends in small groups, and it builds confidence. So if a student is constantly achieving goals every single class, their confidence is going to grow. Not just your strongest students, but even your weakest ones, because they are also achieving these goals each lesson. It frees you up to be a coach and not just a lecturer. So you're not just standing up front, lecturing the whole time and trying to pull stuff out of them. It's them bringing the energy, and they're the ones who are driving the class alone. And it works for teaching alone or for co-teaching. So if you're in a classroom, you're pushing the classroom and you've got other teachers that you are co-teaching alongside, this works very well for that as well. Just noticing the chat, no questions yet. Good. All right, so step-by-step walkthrough. Let's take a look at this in a little bit more detail. The first goal is to choose our goals. So what kinds of goals are we going to make a huge difference in how the lesson goes? If our goals are big, huge, wishy-washy kinds of goals, like I want them to improve in their English, then we're not going to make progress each class because we haven't defined what that means yet. Even if we've defined it well for this semester, we haven't defined it for this specific class. So when we talk about goals, we want to create goals that are both manageable and measurable for each specific lesson that we're teaching. And just as a note, these kinds of goals are built into our Kid Inspired lessons. So if you are a member of the Kid Inspired ELL curriculum membership and you're using our resources, you'll see these goals kind of scattered all over the place. They're built into those resources, and they make it easy for you if you're lesson planning to choose the kind of goals that you'd like to set for your class. So what does it mean to be manageable and measurable? The first one is manageable. What does it mean to have a manageable goal for the class? And that is, they are able to accomplish it in a single lesson. It's not this, massive goal that's going to take us all semester to get there. It's not even a weekly goal. It's a lesson goal. What do I want them to accomplish by the end of this particular lesson? Maybe it's a grammar goal that they are able to make a present simple tense sentence, saying it or writing it without mistakes. Maybe it is they are able to read a passage from a text that they need to understand and explain it in their own words. Something that is very specific that we are able to accomplish this lesson. It's based on the average student of the class. So we're not, looking at the class and here's our strongest student in the class who, you know what I'm talking about. You could sit back, put your legs up, and they would learn everything without you needing to teach much. You have students who are just, we're born to learn well in a classroom. And then you've got students who aren't, who struggle regardless of what you do. It's just hard for them to be in a classroom, to sit, to focus in that kind of way. We need to work with all kinds of students, not just our strongest ones. So what I'm going to recommend is that you choose goals that are tailored to your average student, the average student of the class, not the strongest, not the weakest, the average one. So when you do that, you're going to gain a goal that most of the students in the class are going to be able to accomplish. You're going to need some supports for your struggling students, and you're going to need probably something extra for your stronger students. But it means that you're able to handle the whole class, even though you have some different skill levels, proficiency levels, grade levels even in the same class. So that's what a manageable goal means. And then we also want it to be measurable. So when students have to do something very concrete to show understanding or ability, that's going to be a lot more helpful for you to see whether they've got it. This is particularly helpful if you're using numbers. You're not just sort of wishy-washy, like feel like they've done it. If you've got some very clear, specific goals that they need to accomplish that are based on numbers. So the number of sentences they are able to do without mistakes, the number of words they're able to read in a minute, the how well are they able to summarize a topic on their own inside of a minute. And those are the kinds of goals that are going to help you see very clearly which students have it, which students don't, and which students need more practice. And that's fine. If a student doesn't hit that goal, they can keep practicing in order to reach that goal. We're going to talk about that just a minute when it comes to structuring your class. But these goals that we set are super important first for the later structure. So it needs to be manageable. We can get it done in one lesson. It needs to be measurable, something very concrete that they need to do that you can see clearly. Have they done it or have they not done it? And the nice thing about that measurable goal is that it does give students a lot of confidence. It gives them a lot of interest. It feels a little more gamified when you say you need to be able to do this inside of a minute, and then you go practice and practice and practice, and then you go try, like, you didn't quite get it. That's fine. Let's go practice a bit more and try again. They know when they have crossed that finish line. It's a very clear goal for them, and it helps them build some confidence and interest during your lessons also. So after we have our manageable and measurable goals, we are going to see some of these benefits, which I think I've just kind of gone through. It gives them a very clear finish line. It allows, it ensures that each student is making consistent progress. This is actually one of the issues that I see quite a bit. If you are not getting every student to show that they're gaining understanding, that they are making progress each lesson, it's easy to wait until we give a test, maybe at the end of the semester. And then all of a sudden I realize that I've got a whole bunch of students who haven't made the progress that they need to. They're behind. And now I've got to try to catch them up, which is even harder. So doing this every single lesson creates an environment where I understand and I see clearly, the students see clearly, that all of us are making progress towards our goals for the semester every single lesson. Students will have multiple chances to reach the goal, and it allows for some differentiation, because if you have time where students can work towards that goal on their own, you'll have students who finish it and are able to achieve that goal quite quickly. Some of your stronger students will, no problem. And then you have something extra for them to work on while they are waiting for some of the other students to work towards that goal and achieve it themselves. So it helps us differentiate in that way. All right, so the next step we're going to have for our class is to create a list of challenges. There may only be one thing on your list, because if you don't have a lot of time with your students, then you may not be able to have multiple items on your challenge list. It may just be identify water cycle vocabulary, and then tomorrow we'll do the next challenge, and the next day the next challenge. If you have a bit more time with your students, or you find that they're working hard and making a lot of progress quite quickly, you can make a longer list. So this is basically just tasks that students should be able to accomplish by the end of the lesson. So these are basically our manageable and achievable goals. Whatever those goals were, we're going to make a list of them for our class. And then we're going to put that up on the website. I just noticed Allison asked about what the pro includes. I will go through that at the end, Allison. Thanks for asking about that. And I will, if I forget, please remind me. But I will try to take a little bit of time to go through some of that towards the end, the difference between the standard and pro membership options for the website. So list of challenges. Here's an example with the water cycle. First of all, you have some vocabulary they need to know. And Bloom's taxonomy, you start with words, you work up to sentences, then you work up to paragraphs, and then essays. You are going to step by step build with the language, and we're going to be starting with vocabulary. So being able to identify vocabulary that's key to that lesson, to that content, that is a wonderful goal. If a student can individually identify 10 vocabulary words from a lesson, then they can pass that goal and move on to the next one, or they can work on something else while the other students are trying to achieve that goal. So then you would, as a group, go through that vocabulary. Then as a challenge in small groups of 2 to 3, you could do some activities where they're practicing that vocabulary, and then at an individual level, they're going to practice that vocabulary individually or with another group of students. And then they're going to try to go past a challenge where they identify all of the words of that unit. So that's one example, making 3 sentences in the present simple tense. This could be a speaking challenge. They are going to, the final goal will be to come to you and say 3 sentences in the present simple tense. It can be, related to a specific topic that they're learning, or it can be just in general. And then when they have accomplished that, they're able to say those 3 sentences, then they have passed that challenge and they can move on. If they make a bunch of mistakes and they aren't able to pass it, that's okay. They go back, they practice, and they come back and try it again. Describe the water cycle in your own words might be the third. And then finally, write a short summary of the water cycle. You can see how this kind of builds on itself. If you're describing the water cycle, you're going to be using the present simple tense to do it. You need to be able to know when to add S, how to ask questions, those kinds of things in the present simple. So all of this ties in together. Each one kind of leads to the next. And then when students have finally gone to sit down and write, you're going to see much better content from the writing. You're going to see a lot more confidence with it because they have already done this practice leading up to it. And you're also going to be able to see very clearly which students are struggling with which areas. So if you have a student who just has enormous trouble with the vocabulary and they're having a hard time getting to the next section, next challenge, then you can go and work with that student independently as they're working towards that goal to help them with the vocabulary. Or you can set them with a couple of other students who've already finished their challenges. They can help that student to try to achieve that goal. Then they come up, they pass the challenge, they move on. So that's kind of what this list of challenges would be. Again, it might only be one for you if you don't have much time. It can be more depending on how much time you have with them. Will there be a recording of the webinar? Yes, Rebecca, I am recording it, and I will try to send that out to everybody who registered for it. And so if you need to leave early, I totally understand. I know you guys are busy, and it means a lot that you take the time to show up today. So I'll send out a recording afterward to everybody. So in class, what does this look like? We start as a whole group. This is only going to be about 20% of my time. I usually tell teachers, try to do it in 5-10 minutes at most. You don't want to spend too much time here. The goal is to get the students practicing. We need to introduce the content. We need to introduce vocabulary. We need to introduce, present simple tense. We need to introduce what the water cycle is. All of that we can introduce. We can go through it fairly quickly. You can do some TPR. That's total physical response for anybody who may not know, although I'm pretty sure it's commonly used. Just getting students saying and adding actions to what they're saying. So they're sort of tying together movement with what they're learning. And it really helps mentally for them to make some associations with words and sentences, ideas, so that they can remember it better. And so you would, whole class time, go through whatever it is. Here are our challenges for today. Here are our goals. Here's what we need to be able to do. This is what you need to be able to accomplish. All right, now we're going to practice together in small groups. And so in small groups of 2 to 3, I'm going to give you some activities that you can do with 2 or 3 other students to practice for these challenges. And then we're going to have an individual time where you're going to practice. You can practice in small groups. You can use these activities I've given you. You can practice on your own, doesn't matter. But then you need to come up and show that you're able to accomplish this goal, this task. So that might mean meeting with me as a teacher. So if I'm up front, I'm at my desk, and students think they are ready to accomplish a task, they come over to me, line up. If you don't have too many students, you can use name cards on your table, and you can call them up when they're ready as an alternative. If you have, want too many students waiting in line, it's just a waste of time. And then they try to accomplish this task with you. You can also have some helpers who finish the tasks early. They can also listen to and let students pass challenges. So they're going through that with you. If it's a writing activity, then it's a little easier. They can just turn it in and you can check it to see if they've passed that challenge. If it's a speaking one, they kind of need to meet with somebody to do it, and so on. So we have this individual time where everybody's working towards that. And then if students pass, that's great. You move on to the next challenge. Great job. If they don't pass, that's fine. Go practice some more and then come back and find me again. Or, I've got 2 or 3 students I know who are great helpers. Go sit down with so-and-so and they're going to help you with this challenge. And then you both are going to come up here and you're going to pass this challenge this next time. So you're really differentiating. You're giving space for students to learn in a way that they find most helpful. And of course, you're freed up to go around and work with students if you need it as well. So that's the whole group, small groups, and then individuals. So what are some of the guidelines we need to pay attention? I've talked about some of these already, but I just thought it'd be nice to have sort of an overall picture of what those guidelines might be. All students busy all the time. We just want to reduce the amount of time that students are sitting around waiting to as close to 0 as possible. So just avoid, I always recommend, just avoid asking questions where single students answer. Make sure that all of your games, all of your activities, that everybody's participating all at the same time. Games where one student comes up and does something while everybody sits there and watches, just that kind of stuff you want to avoid. Less teacher, more student. We want to reduce the time that I'm talking up front, lecturing up front. You get 10, 15 minutes at most anyway if you're talking. Rest of it's sort of a wash. So just reduce the amount of time you're talking, turn it over to the students, Groups of 2 to 3, you talked about that. Individual assessment, making sure the students are passing these goals individually without help. We don't want a student being able to sneak by because they were able to hang on to the coattails of somebody else in their group. And then our games and activities. We'll talk about a couple of these in a minute. I am keeping an eye on that time. So I'm going to try to get to these activities here soon in a second here too. But the games that we choose, we want to keep all students involved. So all students busy all the time. Require actually using the content as much as possible. Seems to go without saying, but it's important that that game actually requires them to use the content that they need for that, achieving that goal. And then they're super easy to explain. You don't want to spend half an hour explaining the activity and students don't really understand, and then you're having to go around and help the students just figure out how to play the game. And that isn't helpful. We want to focus the time really on the content itself. So those games, those activities are going to matter a lot, the kinds of games we choose. And then find those concrete goals we talked about before with the measurable and manageable goals. So those are sort of the main guidelines of the class that we want to kind of adhere to as we go through it. All right, so what are some of those activity ideas that we can plug in at that small group level? So we have groups of 2 to 3 students working. What kinds of activities can they be doing to practice towards those manageable and measurable goals? What does that look like? I've got a few here. There are lots, and there's more on the website. I'll talk about that in a second. But my favorite all-time game is just this flashcard game. It's really simple. It works with any flashcards that you have, and you can use it in a variety of ways. So flashcards can be used for vocabulary. They can be used for sentence creation. They can be used for concepts. There's lots and lots you can do with flashcards. And so students get into groups of 2 or 3. You have a set of flashcards for every single group. So this does require a little bit more printing. And inside the membership, we got a lot of feedback that our flashcards were, big. They're half-page flashcards. And so teachers were printing a lot of them and realizing, just wish they had some smaller ones. So we actually went back and we made new flashcards. So you have 2 different options now. You have the half-page, and now you've got these little mini flashcards you can print. So it's a lot easier now to create a set for each of these small groups. So you create a set of flashcards for each small group. Each small group has their own set of flashcards, and then one person is a caller. So let's say I'm in the caller. I have the flashcards. There are 2 people in front of me in my group. I hold up a flashcard. They say the word, the sentence, the concept, whatever, and then they get that flashcard. And then I hold up the next one, and they race to say the word, sentence, concept, whatever, and then they get that flashcard. And then whoever has the most flashcards after they're all done gets to be the next caller. And so then that person holds them up again. And the nice thing about this is that it really means that weaker students who don't know it as well end up having to call out the words more often. And the stronger students end up being the caller more often. And so you end up with students who may not have been as familiar with content getting to know that content much better as a result. All students are involved. It's very active. It's very focused on the content. It's very student-centered. You don't have to do anything. You can explain it, and it takes a minute to explain it, or 30 seconds to even model it up front. Very easy to do. So one of my favorite all-times activities. It's on the website if you want a more detailed outline of it. The next activity I have is high-low. This one, it's going to sound like I'm going a little bit against what I just said about focusing on content, but I promise it does. So high-low is just a card game. And basically, you put a card up on the board. So you can see here, I've got this, 2 card here. And then I've got the deck here. So I've got the deck. There's a 2 up there. And I go to the first group, and I just say higher or lower. And they say higher. It's a 2. So the next card is going to almost necessarily be higher unless it's an ace. An ace, we call it 1. So then you turn to the next card. If it's higher and they're correct, then they get the card. If it's not, then they don't get the card, and I move on to the next group. So that group, it's a group of 2 or 3 students, or even at this point, it could be half the class if you wanted to. It doesn't really matter. But basically, I'm holding up the cards. They're yelling out higher or lower. They either get the card or they don't, and then I move on to the next group. It's very fast, and it's very fun. Kids just really get in. It's oh, it's higher. And then if they're right, they get the card, and they're so pumped. And then whoever has the most cards at the end of the series of rounds that you play wins that game, and you can give them some sort of a reward, piece of candy or something. So how does this get them practicing content, you might ask? Well, the card game itself does not. It's the motivation to play this card game. The card game is very quick, very easy to explain, and it's a lot of fun. It creates a lot of motivation because they want to play. Their group really wants to participate. And so all you do is say, okay, I need everybody in small groups of 1, 2, or 3, doesn't matter, practicing for this goal. And so they might be practicing identifying vocabulary words. They might be practicing doing sentences, whatever it is. And you just go around the class and you just observe. And you notice that there's a couple of groups over here. They aren't practicing. They're just chatting away, enjoying themselves, but they're not practicing. And you say, okay, everybody stop, pencils down, look at me. We're going to play a round of high-low. And you go through all the groups, but you don't go to those 2 groups that weren't practicing. They don't get to play this round. You're like, it's okay. You guys need to practice your content. You're just a little too chatty over here. You practice your content. Next round, you'll get to play. And then you can move on. Okay, everybody go practice some more. You go around, listen, and those students will very, very likely be practicing now like they should. And you go around and do high-low again. And after a few rounds, the game is finished. Whoever has the most cards wins. It's a wonderful activity. It's a great go-to activity you can use very, very easily with just about any goals or content. All right, so next one, speed. This is a fun one that you can do with groups of 2 or 3. They just get it with a partner and they're timing each other. So a student A is going to practice towards the goal. Maybe it's reading a passage from a text that you need to read, or it is identifying vocabulary words or making sentences. And so how many words a minute can you do? How many sentences a minute can you do? How many of these vocabulary words can you identify in a minute? Or how long does it take you to identify all of these vocabulary words? You're going to student B is going to time student A to do it. And then you're going to write down that time. And this is where you have a choice. Student A can then time to student B, and they can see who wins if you want a little bit more competition. Or you can have them try to beat their own score. So it's not so competitive. It's more like cooperative. So I got 3 sentences round 1, and so round 2, I'm going to try to get 4, something like that. So there's a couple of ways you can do this challenge, and it works with a variety of content as well. The last one I have for you is this flashcards column. This is also a flashcard activity, but it's wonderful for turning things over to students to learn vocabulary on their own. If you've ever spent a lot of time up front trying to teach vocabulary, you know that it can be hard to teach it all in a short amount of time. I'm going to go through this quickly because I'm just, again, keeping an eye on that time. The idea here is we have a number of flashcards. It doesn't have to be, I've got 12 here. It doesn't have to be that many. You just have three columns, column A, column B, column C. Students are going to sit at their tables in small groups. They're going to practice column A. The goal, might be able to identify, remember the vocabulary word, and write it, spell it out, without mistakes. So they're going to write out and practice a column A, identifying those vocabulary words. When they're ready, they go to a test table or the challenge table at the front, whatever you want to call it. You have a table, an area separate where they grab a piece of paper and they try to write out the column A words. Maybe it's sentences, maybe it's a concept, something. They're going to write it out on that piece of paper. They hand it to you and you say pass, fail. They pass, they go on to column B and they start practicing column B. If they fail, it's okay. Go back, keep practicing column A. Today, I want everybody to be able to accomplish column A. If you accomplish column B, you get a piece of candy. You accomplish column C, no homework tonight. So, something like that. It's great, fun activity. It's very, very student-centered. It allows students a lot of choice, autonomy. They can practice however they want. And as long as they come up and they're able to achieve that goal, they're good to go. There are more activity ideas on the the Kid Inspired site. If you go to kidinspired.com, and then at the top menu, you'll see classroom teachers and then ELL activity ideas. There's a whole bunch there. Most of them work in this similar kind of fashion to meet the goals that we've been talking about today. So let me give you a few examples from the curriculum that we have that have these kind of goals built in to give you an idea of how we do it. So this page here is a vocabulary page. You can see that there are words and very often pictures and definitions at the top, words at the bottom. The idea here is that you can fold the words under or cover the words up, and then you have to identify those images from memory. You have to be able to identify them without looking at the words at the bottom. It's a super helpful tool. You can even tear that bottom part off if students are unable to do it without peeking, but they can practice however they want, but it allows them to test themselves. And there's a whole bunch of games and activities you can do with students. You can roll a dice and say the word for that nice number. You can paper, scissors, stone. You can play, like, basically make it into like a board game. There's a lot of stuff you can do with these pages. So they're a great tool for that. When a student passes a challenge, they come up to you, they fold it under, they identify those words, and then you sign off. You can see down here, there's a place to sign or stamp. And then that says they've passed that challenge, they move on to the next one. Or, if you only have that challenge today, then they would do whatever else extra content you've had available to them. Or if needed, if students need a bit of a scaffolding, you can have them be able to look and peek and then fold it back under and then say it, but look when they need to. So it's kind of the scaffolding is built into that. So that's a vocabulary challenge. And again, there's a lot of activities you can do with that. I will not go through those since we're running low on time. Speaking of grammar, you can see here how many sentences can I do in a minute. This is sentences that are correct without mistakes inside of a minute. So we've practiced these sentences. Here are the images at the top. They're making sentences, they're describing, they're using vocabulary words, whatever it is the goal for that page would be. And then you can fold this under again so they can't see it, but when they're practicing on their own, they have a reference there. They have something, they have sentence, there's a frame, a sentence stem at the top. There's sentence frames at the bottom. You can see that they're underlined. They can switch out words. Then they fold it under, and the goal could be, down here, if you use these metals, 4 sentences is a bronze medal, 6 is a silver, and 8 is a gold medal. So you can give them a medal or a certain prize that is associated with that medal. But that's how those challenges are actually built into the content of the curriculum. Reading is also the same. If you have them reading a passage, you can give them a graphic organizer to fill out. This one's easy. They hand it in to you, and you can check pass or fail. If they pass, great. If not, you can hand it back to them. There are scaffolded graphic organizers available. This one is a multiple choice. So there, if you've got students who are struggling with the blank graphic organizer, you can hand them this one, and they can circle to make sure that they're still making some progress in that class, even though they might not be able to get the full blank graphic organizer filled out on their own. But these graphic organizers are a great way to see, have you understood the content of this passage or not? Writing is obviously another easy one where they can write something and turn it in. You can say pass or fail. And the only idea behind writing that we want to be careful about is that we're giving good examples of good writing for them. We're giving them a good structure. So races is a great structure for writing a good response to a comprehension question. If you don't know what races is, there's a whole article on the website. I won't have time to go through it right now, but annotation, you've got, example essays that they can go through. And so they've got good models to base it on. And they've already spent time learning vocabulary, the grammar, the concepts. So then when it comes to writing, it's a lot easier for them to put their ideas down on paper because they've already spent time preparing for it. So this would be the final challenge, and it would be related to what they've already been working on. All right, so I do have a few gifts for you. I have a lesson planner, which is a fillable one. You can type right into it. I've got some sample lessons for you. I've also got some grade 6 to 12 lessons for you. Those are new that we've been working on over the last year. And we're still adding tons of content. We've got tons of new releases coming up, biology and vocabulary themes and new pro content with landscape slides and beautiful storybook kind of formatting for landscapes. Lots and lots of fun stuff coming out soon. And so I'm going to do is paste these links into the chat down here for you. So you can grab them at your convenience. And if you have any questions or need any help with anything, please get in touch and let me know. And I do have time to stick around and answer some questions. I will go through here in just a second the difference between the pro and standard membership options, because I know somebody asked about it earlier. But if you have any other questions, please just drop them in the chat and I'll just kind of go through them. If you do need to get out of here for whatever reason, I totally understand. Don't feel bad. If you want to learn more, you can go to kidinspired.com. It's kid-inspired.com. If you do ESL curriculum, at the end of that, you'll get to the membership options. But if you go to kidinspired.com, there's a big button at the top you can click on. And there's a lot of information there. There's lots of strategies and free resources, all kinds of stuff available on the site for you. And again, just thank you guys for coming. I love having the chance to hang out with you guys for a little bit. I know it's not a ton of time, and I know you guys are all busy, and it means a lot to me that you take the time to hang out with me today. So again, if you have any questions, please let me know in the chat, and I will go. You're welcome, Allison and Sarah. No problem, Amy. Really glad you guys could make it. I will jump over to the let's see if I can share my screen here real fast. Share screen, and I want to share a window, and I want to share this one here. All right, so I'm hoping that's showing up okay. This is inside of the membership, and that's actually not what I wanted to show you. Let me stop sharing that and try sharing. I can show you inside of membership in a minute if you guys are interested, but this is the one I wanted to show first. So here on the Kid Inspired blog, this is where you would sign up. And I just mentioned before, there's difference between the standard and the pro options. So the standard basically is the entire curriculum, all of the resources of the curriculum, and all the extra resources from the Kid Inspired library, including readers, graphic organizers, vocab themes. There's a ton of stuff in there. Basically, you get access to everything. But the standard only includes the printable PDFs. So you'll have the sort of, normal letter size PDF print offs for everything. The Pro adds the landscape and PPT slides. And so when you join Pro, you'll have the option at the bottom of each of the lessons where you'll see that there are hosted interactive slides that you can, you can display those on a screen in the classroom. There's games and lots of interactive features to that. They're all in landscape formatting. They're, the stories are in storybook formatting. And so they're just great for displaying on a screen, or if you're teaching online, either one, the Pro option is great for that. We are testing out the possibility of adding some AI tools that will allow you to create resources just by typing in some things into AI and having all of that created for you. That would probably go into the Pro level membership as well, because of the fact that it's kind of expensive to be using AI for us as we're creating stuff, that it costs us money to do that. So that will probably also go into the Pro membership. This hasn't been released yet. It's just kind of a heads up as to what we are working on next. Let's see. Yeah, that's kind of the main difference between them. Obviously, there's a bit of a difference in price, but we have always tried to keep the pricing as low as possible for you. I know a lot of teachers have to pay out of pocket. Do you have lessons for elementary? Yes, Sarah, there's a ton in there for elementary. The curriculum was designed for students K all the way up to grade 11, grade 12. Obviously, it gets a little more complicated in high school, and we've been developing resources specifically geared towards high school. So beginners resources at a very low proficiency English proficiency resources for kids in grades 6 to 12. We're developing a whole new biology course, which, if you remember, it's actually, you can already kind of find it in there. It hasn't actually been, we haven't broadcast that at all yet. So if you all remember and you want to dig around, right on the homepage, you should be able to see that new biology course that's going up in there, which we're really excited about. But you can see there's all kinds of different resource content here. If your students are in elementary and they're just starting out, you can jump right into the beginner 1 level. They'll get the full phonics course along with all of the survival English and basic vocabulary that they need. So yeah, tons in there for elementary, all the way up to middle school and high school. Let's see whether actually some behind lessons. That's great to hear, Casey. I hope it's gone well. And if you have any questions at any time about any of that, please feel free to get in touch. I know you have before, and you feel free to jump into my inbox anytime. Love hearing from you, and hearing how things are going, and if you have any suggestions of things that you might find helpful. I can jump into I'm going to stop sharing that, and I'll jump into the membership itself. I can show you kind of behind the scenes quickly for those of you who are interested in seeing that. I'm going to do share screen, and let's see, where is that? I had it earlier. All right, so yeah, this is the main homepage of the membership. This is the pro option for this. And on the main homepage, there are two different views you can choose from. This is the curriculum view, where I can view the main levels of the curriculum, the main resource types of the curriculum. So you can see here all the different curriculum levels, the different kinds of readers we have, the vocabulary and speaking resources. So it's more like categories. And I can filter by grade level and proficiency level here. I can get help with choosing a level by using this level chooser assistant. We also have a placement assessment that will help you place students in a level. And now we have beginners 1 for elementary, and we have beginners 1 for grades 6 to 12. And we've done that for beginners 1 all the way up to beginners or lower intermediate 1 already. And then we've got new biology content coming in for grades 6 to 12. And again, you can, if you need to filter for specific grades, you can do that. The other thing you can do is go to the resource view. And in the resource view, you can filter down for specific resources, specific lessons. So I might be interested in a specific topic like science, for instance, and I only want to see science lessons. And I only want to see science lessons for, let's say, grade 5. And I only want to see science lessons for grade 5 at maybe the lower intermediate level. So I can drill down specifically to lesson content that I might use. And I can basically create my own curriculum out of what's in here. So depending on your needs, these two views are available, and based off the feedback we've received, that's kind of how the two different main ways teachers often use the membership. Very quickly, the pro membership, if you are going into the lessons, I'll show you where to find that pro content and what it looks like. And if I scroll down, this is a whole level, lower intermediate 2. All the units are down the side, so I can jump to units, lessons quickly. This is new for those of you who may not have seen that before. And there are some lesson planning resources, and then you start the units here. And if I were to jump into any of these lessons, I can download the PDF for that lesson and also view the PowerPoint slides. So the standard members all have access to this PDF download. I click on that and I'm able to download this lesson. It's got all of the lesson plans, activity ideas, resources that you would need to teach this lesson, along with all the activities and scaffolds and everything like that included. And you can find some drop downs here with some more related resources. And then you can see at the bottom, the pro membership content is down here. So if you're a pro member, this will show for you. And then there are slides here that you can project on a whiteboard, on a screen in the classroom. You can go full screen. You can jump around to slides inside of this lesson. And there are lots of games and activities and interactive things that you can do within these lessons that you can do with the class. If you have a pro membership, you can also get free student portal seats with that pro membership that will allow you to give login access to students, and they can work through this on their own. So we do provide that for free with pro members. There's always some free student portal seats available. Sometimes we do give away more student seats during particular promotions. But we always make that available regardless of when you sign up. If we have a promotion going, it would be made available to all current members. And you can always take advantage of that. And if you have any questions about any of that kind of stuff, always feel free to get in touch with me. But that's how that works. If you wanted the PPT slides, those are just under here under downloads, and you can download the PowerPoint slides for this lesson. They're not as interactive because it's PowerPoint, but still, some teachers really want that the PowerPoint stuff. Sherry, you're more than welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Any other questions I I can answer for you guys before we get off for today, drop them in now. If not, I will look forward to maybe being able to catch up with you guys in the next webinar that we have. And or if you get in touch with me by email, you can always email me at support@kidinspired.com. That will create a ticket for you that and I'll get in touch with you again. Yeah, so Allison, I'm really glad it was helpful. Thank you so much for the feedback. I wish you guys all the best with your students this year. I know that you guys are busy.